This video was made possible thanks to my amazing patrons at patreon.com/magicalhacker. If you're not a patron and you would like me to make a video for you each month using your decks, become a patron today. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavony Township, the show where it's not about me and my decks, it is about you and your decks. Whether you're someone that wins one of my YouTube or Twitter giveaways, whether you're someone that I'm collaborating with, another YouTube content creator, or whether you're a patron of mine at patreon.com/magicalhacker. And that's exactly what we've got for today's episode. Unspokenblood, one of my patrons over at patreon.com, is one of the tiers where he can submit a deck list every month and have me do a deck doctor episode for it. And so this is going to be this month's episode for Unspokenblood. I really love the decks. He's a lot like me, I think. We're both two people that love just building decks. Just the process of building a deck is fun in and of itself. And so he always has a deck to give me. There's lots of different tiers there, of course. One for deck doctors, one for gameplay videos, and there's a couple of other ones where it's extra fancy stuff on the side. But Unspokenblood really knows how to take advantage of these, sometimes giving me decks like the last episode that I did for him, where he gave me a deck that was way over 100 cards, and he asked me to cut it down to 100. So whatever you want, that's what I can do over at patreon.com. Just let me know, and we will work something out. All right, so enough about Patreon. Let's talk about this deck that Unspokenblood has given me, and let's start off by talking about the commander. The commander here is Estrid the Masked. 4 mana for a legendary Planeswalker, Estrid Planeswalker. It enters with 3 loyalty and can be your commander, which is not true of all Planeswalkers, of course. But it's got 3 loyalty abilities. The first one is a +2 that allows you to untap each enchanted permanent you control. -1 to create a white aura enchantment token named Mask attached to another target permanent. The token has enchant permanent and totem armor. And then lastly, -7 to mill 7 cards. Return all non-aura enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then do the same for aura cards. So in a lot of ways, this is a commander that you can tell is very surrounding enchantment cards. However, it's a specific type of enchantment cards that Estrid wants. She wants auras. Specifically auras. So if you're trying to build a deck with a lot of auras, this is going to be a lot better for you if you want to go into Bant. Now there's another subtype of aura. I know there's way too many subtypes. Another subtype of aura is Curse. And curses won't actually work that well with Estrid, even though Estrid here will want to have auras. Curses are the one type that she doesn't want because the +2 deals with enchanted permanents. Curses obviously enchant players. The -1 also puts auras onto permanents. And then -7, yes, she can return the curses from the graveyard. She can return all enchantments. You mill 7 cards and then basically you do replenish, which is a great ultimate. The downside is, like, that's all you're doing with your commander, not going to be great for curses. But other than that, non-curses auras is definitely what Estrid's going to like. So let's go and jump into talking about this deck, and I'll give my ideas about where we can, fix things up. So, like I always do with all my deck doctor episodes, I'm going to go ahead and put a lot of these cards into the same category or into the same stack, and then just work my way down from there. And I believe that's everything we've got here. We got one last one here, Omniscience. We'll just add that one in. All right. So the first one I'd like to talk about is Soul Ring. Now this one is definitely going to count as ramp. Because of how cheap it is, though, it'll also sometimes function as a land. You're opening your first 7 cards from the deck for the beginning of the game. You've got 2 lands and a Soul Ring. That's actually pretty keepable for most decks. And so in a lot of ways, this does count as a land. Maybe you top deck one, late game. It's going to be basically like a land in that situation as well. So in a lot of ways, Soul Ring can be both part of the mana base and part of the ramp at the same time. Second thing we've got here, Ethereal Armor. Now this is going to be definitely a win condition. If you can put a bunch of auras onto one creature, this is definitely going to work in that way. Seal of Cleansing. This one's a good way to have spot removal on an enchantment, so that's going to be a spot removal section. Fertile Ground, not only ramp by itself, but also works really well with the +2 from Estrid, where you can enchant a land, use it for mana, +2, untap that land, and now you can use the Fertile Ground right away again. So that's pretty nice. This is another spot removal spell here. Sterling Grove, I'm going to put this into a category by itself right now. I'm not sure if Unspokenblood wants more so the protection for enchantments, or is it more in there for the tutor ability. So I'm going to kind of leave this category open and see is Unspokenblood going more for the tutors or for the protection side of Sterling Grove. Obviously, you can take advantage of both, but what's the main reason that you're including it? That's my big question here. Tuvasa the Sunlit, that's going to count as card draw, so we'll put a category for that. Same thing with the Cold-Eyed Selkie, which also works really well with auras. If you can pump that up, it's already got the unblockability, so just making it bigger allows you to draw more and more cards off of the Cold-Eyed Selkie. Satyr Enchanter also going to count as another source of card draw here. Daxus of Meletus kind of does the same thing. I tend to not try to have too much card draw where I'm using other people's decks. Not because I think it's a wrong thing to do or anything, but you want to have a lot of card draw so that you can continue to take advantage of the synergies within your own deck. When you're playing other opponents' cards, then it's kind of a toss-up. You might be just finding stuff that you're not going to be actually able to use, or it might be, it's a much higher chance that you're going to draw into dead cards if you're drawing off an opponent's deck, in my opinion. But for this deck, that's fine. Another Enchantress effect here, same thing here. I think this is an Enchantress. Actually, no, this is something that gets a buff for all enchantments. So we'll put that off to the side. It does have Enchantress in the name. That's why I was a little bit thrown off. But this one is definitely an Enchantress effect, where you're drawing cards per your the enchantment that you're casting. Weirding Wood is going to be ramp here. Same thing as a Fertile Ground, basically. Same thing with the Verdant Haven, also going to work. Trollhide, this is a way to give Regenerate to a creature. So I'm going to put that into a new category just because I want to make sure that I've got that set up where basically we've got some auras where they're trying to protect our creatures and then others are not. Trollhide might be one of the ones we're going to drop. You know what? Actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to put that into the tentative drop category because I don't think that's going to be super necessary in a deck like this, in my opinion. I could be wrong. But I feel like that's probably not that great of a card for this deck, at least just looking at it so far. I might change my mind as we keep going. Omniscience, this is definitely going to be a way that you can combo off with your Enchantress effects. Let's say you have one, maybe even 2 or 3 of those Enchantress out there. You've got the Omniscience on the board. You cast an enchantment for free. You draw a card for free. Maybe that's an enchantment. You cast that for free. And you basically keep doing that, rinse and repeat until you just play a bunch of stuff out there and it just becomes impossible to win. So this is what we're going to put as a combo category because that's what is going to happen here. More ramp off of this Sheltered Aerie. Overgrowth, one of my favorite land auras. I just think it's amazing. New Horizons, another one. Yeah, so I love this one because it goes from producing 1 mana to producing 3 mana off that one land. So that's really awesome. Gift of Paradise, some more ramp. I really love these cards. I mean, Estrid is definitely the right place to put them. So if you want to play the land auras, like Estrid the Masked is a definitely good deck to use that for. Aura Gnarlid, basically the same thing here as the Yavimaya Enchantress, so I'm going to put that into that category. Ancestral Mask is going to work just like the Ethereal Armor. Infiltrator's Mage Mark, this is going to give unblockability. So we'll put that into a new category here as like an unblockability category. Spot Removal here from the Imprison in the Moon, very, very good card. I love having that one. Estrid's Invocation allows you to copy an enchantment you control. So I'm not sure where the, I mean, I guess you could find benefit every now and then, but trying to build around Estrid's Invocation will be pretty tough. Obviously, it does work with the Sterling Grove. I'm going to put this into the same category as the Omniscience for right now because there are some ways that you can kind of combo with this. But you're not going to want to copy your own auras because if you do that with Estrid's Invocation, it will actually, well, actually, no, hold on. You'll actually flicker it. So you'll be able to return it to the battlefield as an aura and then attach it to something. Yeah, that sounds actually pretty good. You can choose to make whatever aura you need in that situation. Shielded by Faith, this is going to give indestructibility to that creature, which is definitely better than Regenerate. I was thinking kind of the Totem Armor as being, well, I guess you could just use that, right? You -1 the Estrid, put Totem Armor. That's good, good for protection as well. But the one thing I like about the Shielded by Faith is that this allows you to have a creature enter and immediately give it the indestructibility. So that is pretty nice. We'll put that with the protection because I'm not seeing any tutors just yet. We might find some later down the line, but for right now, I feel like Sterling Grove looks to be in here for protection, which might be what the Estrid's Invocation is in here for as well. Copying the Sterling Grove gives protection to the original, so that is always pretty good as well. Another Enchantress effect from that one. Unquestioned Authority gives unblockability. Also allows you to draw a card, which is kind of nice. This gives you protection from the chosen color. Definitely counts as unblockability. Oblivion Ring is going to count as spot removal. We've got the Chain Veil, which I guess will combo off with Estrid the Masked. So if you're using this one, you're activating an additional category, or an additional ability from Estrid, rather. You can use that +2 again, and if you have the Chain Veil enchanted with one of these masks, then, kind of ironically, it's a mask that's getting another mask. Then what you can do is you can then untap it again, use the mana again from the lands that you've untapped, and go for infinite activations off of the Estrid the Mask. Could potentially generate infinite mana, which is going to be the same thing as what you're going to want to do with the Omniscience. So that definitely seems like a good idea there. Panharmonicon, I think this was a pretty interesting one here. I don't really see anything in this deck so far in terms of artifacts or creatures that are going to have additional enter the battlefield ability. So I'm going to put this with that other card that we talked about, the Trollhide. I think this might not be that great here, at least for right now. It doesn't look super great. Cassie the Cultivator will allow us to draw additional cards. Supreme Verdict is going to count as a board wipe. Very important effect for pretty much every deck, so you want to make sure that you've got something like that in the majority of your decks. We'll put this over into the new category here, and then we're going to go on to the next one, which is Eidolon of Blossoms, I think is what it's called. Yeah, Eidolon of Blossoms, that's going to count as card draw. Bear Umbra, this is going to be ramp for sure, because you're going to be able to untap all of your lands, and that is going to allow you to produce more mana. Market Festival also will count as ramp here. Dawn's Reflection, just the same way. We've got Holy Mantle, which is going to be unblockability, so we'll put that over in that section. Replenish is going to be Recursion, so I'll put a new category for that one. On Sarah's Wings, giving flying, that counts as unblockability in a way. Loyal Unicorn, if you control your commander, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to creatures you control this turn. Other creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. So you're going to basically have an effect that prevents combat damage to your attacking creatures and giving them vigilance. So I'm not sure where this fits into the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to put this also into this category of maybe drop, because I don't really see the point for that one just yet. Maybe we'll find that out here in a second, but I'm just going to put that over into that category for right now. Karamitra is going to be ramp. We don't have a ton of creatures, at least from what I can tell in this deck so far. But Karamitra is still going to be good as an enchantment in general. Privileged Position, going to be another effect kind of like Sterling Grove. Oath of Teferi. This one isn't necessarily like the Chain Veil, but having 2 activated abilities from Estrid is good. So we'll put that into that combo category. Enchanted Evening. This one's pretty interesting because it turns all of your permanents into enchantments. So with things that have Constellation, that means that your lands will now trigger them as well. I kind of like that for the combo category for right now. Creeping Renaissance is going to be another source of recursion. Doubling Season. Now this is going to combo with Estrid the Masked. Allows you to go for that -7, not this turn, but next turn. So it makes it a lot faster. I'm going to put that into the combo category for sure. Next up, we've got the Whitewater Naiads. Constellation gives unblockability to a creature. I guess this is nice. This is going to be unblockability. So yeah, let's put that with the rest of the unblockability generators here. So I do see right now we've got a lot in this category for unblockability, which means that these cards here, like the Yavimaya Enchantress and the Aura Gnarlid, are actually going to be very good in a deck like this. The downside is, if you don't have these unblockability enablers, these are going to be very easy to block, and so that makes it a pretty big problem. Next up, we've got the Octopus Umbra. This allows you to tap down a blocker. It also gives it a buff here. It gives it to Power and Toughness 8/8. So that is kind of like a pretty interesting buff, and you get to tap something down. So you know what? I kind of like that one for the, I guess for the unblockability. It's a little bit of an interesting one because it's 5 mana. So I feel like we can probably make that a little bit easier to use. Like we can probably find some cheaper ways to get unblockability in terms of auras. It's also got totem armor though, so it's kind of like protection as well. Yeah, I mean it does a couple of things, all for just 5 mana. It can give slight unblockability. It can give slight buffing, not anywhere near as good as Ancestral Mask or anything, but it does buff up creatures for the most part, and it does kind of protect. So it does like a couple of things, all kind of. I'm going to put it into this protection category because I don't think I'm going to be dropping anything from this category, and I don't want to forget what I just talked about with Octopus Umbra. Winds of Wrath is going to be another board wipe, so we can put that with that category. Next up, we've got Spectral Ward, which I've lost the Spectral Ward a couple of times. I had a buddy of mine who played this in an Urwil deck, so we'll put that with the protection as being unblockability because that definitely does the job. Sigil of the Empty Throne. Now this one I'm going to put into a category which seems a little weird, but I guess once I make the explanation, it will make more sense. Having flyers, those kind of have a little bit of a built-in unblockability. So whenever you're casting an enchantment, you're just getting more buffed onto your board, kind of the same way as Ancestral Mask. If you put that on a creature and you make that unblockable, it's the same way as, you have Sigil of the Empty Throne, you're casting enchantments, and now you're making creatures that have somewhat unblockability. So I'm going to put it into that category of caring about enchantments and things along those lines. Next up, we've got Archon of Valor's Reach. So you can choose any type that you want to choose and then use that here. So I don't know what's going to be used, because we have a lot of enchantments. So let me see here. Enchantments, obviously creatures we've got as well. Creatures and enchantments up to this point. I'm not seeing, well, we do have the Chainmail, so that's one artifact. But I'm not seeing any instants or sorceries. Oh, actually, no, we do have 2 sorceries here. We've got Supreme Verdict and Winds of Wrath. So I believe Archon of Valor's Reach is most likely going to be used probably on instants as a way to protect yourself from counter spells. And then if you don't really feel like you're going up against any blue decks, you can use it against artifacts, because everybody's got artifacts in their deck. So I kind of like this one for protection. It protects you from counter spells. That's pretty nice. Bruna, Light of Alabaster. Now this one's going to be like recursion, because you can return those auras that got destroyed off of the creatures or anything like that. So I'm going to put that with the recursion section here. Sovereigns of Lost Alara. This one definitely counts as a tutor. We don't have a tutor section just yet, so I'm going to make a section for that here as well. Hydra Omnivore. This is going to be a good card to actually put a bunch of auras on. So I'm going to put this with the category here that has the Yavimaya Enchantress and the Aura Gnarlid. Archetype of Imagination gives all your creatures unblockability. We've also got here Arbiter of the Ideal. Now the downside for this one is you reveal the top card of your library only if it's an artifact, creature, or land card. You get to put it onto the battlefield with a manifestation counter on it. Because we've got so many enchantments in this deck, it's actually not going to work with Arbiter of the Ideal. So I actually feel pretty confident that dropping this card will actually be good for the deck. We can drop this one because we're not going to be able to put enchantments out into the battlefield for free with it, so it's not going to be that great anyways. Phyrexian Rebirth, this one's going to be a pretty good board wipe, so we'll put that with that category. Next up, we've got the Heavenly Blade Master. So we can move auras from other creatures onto this one when it enters the battlefield. It also gives +1/+1 to all the other creatures for those auras that are attached to it. So I kind of like this one as a way to buff up other creatures. It also, doubles as a good creature to have out there and put auras on. But for right now, we'll just put it to this category here because I feel like that fits pretty well there as well. This one, whenever an enchantment enters, it gives a pretty big buff to your creature. So I like that one for that same category. We've got here Silent Sentinel. So this allows you to recur some of your enchantments, so I'm going to put that with the recursion. And then last up here, we've got the Spawning Grounds, which allows you to create tokens with trample, which is kind of like a source of evasion. And we're untapping our lands if they're enchanted, which is this is going to be on a land, so we can untap that and create some more tokens. I kind of like that one. It kind of works with Estrid's +2 to kind of add more to your board. So this is where we're at right now. We've got 4 cards that I do feel pretty confident that we can drop here. Trollhide, Panharmonicon, Loyal Unicorn, and the Arbiter of the Ideal. All 4 of these cards here, I mean, they're not as great as I could see them being in a deck like this. So I feel pretty confident about those. So let's take a look at the other cards that we've got in here and try to figure out what we'd like to add in and what we'd like to drop. So that's going to be kind of an important first step here as well. Let's go ahead and add some of these cards to the categories that I would say that I would add them to. And then lastly here, the Sovereigns of Lost Alara. Okay, so we've got all of our categories here. Obviously, this is going to be pretty heavily based on attacking with creatures. We've got a couple of those in here as well. We've also got some things that allow us to put a lot more creatures out in the battlefield. We've got unblockability as well. However, the way that I'm seeing it is that there's just so much in this deck in terms of unblockability that are pretty expensive that I kind of want to take a look to see if I can find some better sources of unblockability on auras off of that category. I also want to add an additional board wipe here. I think that's going to be a good way to improve this deck as well. Recursion, I think we're good on. We don't really need... I mean, we're playing an aura deck. I mean, if there's any deck that wants a lot of recursion, it's going to be an aura deck. You know what? Maybe we actually might add some more recursion in here. Maybe. I'm still not sure if I actually want to do that here. We're casting a lot of enchantments. Obviously, with the Omniscience in here, it might be beneficial for us to add in an Academy Rector. It's a pretty expensive card in paper, but one of the nice things about that is if you can get it out and then maybe immediately board wipe or something along those lines, you can then get your Omniscience out there from your library and put it onto the battlefield for free. So that's a pretty big benefit. I think where I'd like to start is I'm going to start by finding one board wipe. I think we got to add that one in. In terms of lands, we've got 35, so I think it would be probably a good idea to add one more land in there as well. So that means we've got 2 spots left over for what else we want to add. Maybe I'm going to add in one more spot removal to give that up to 3. And if I do make any changes to the category that contains unblockability. I'm going to be just making 1-for-1 trades out of that. Then we can add one more recursion, bring it up to 5. I feel like that's a pretty good idea. So let's start off with that. In terms of recursion, the first one that I'm thinking about that I really enjoy. There's actually 2 that I like for different reasons, and I'm going to talk about both of them so you can kind of see where I'm coming from, and then you can maybe Unspokenblood if you want to decide which one you like more, because they're both really good, but it just depends on which one you like more. But let's just talk about both of them. So the first one here is Seasons Past. It's the first one that I really like because it allows you to bring back a ton of cards from your graveyard, and the only worry is that you can't pick 2 or more cards that have the same CMC. And so that's a really good card to have if you've got to have a lot of different card types that you want to return. Maybe you want to return a creature and an artifact, maybe another artifact, and maybe another creature, but also an enchantment and a land. You can do that with Seasons Past. It's very open, very versatile, and so I like that one a lot. And I'm having a little bit of trouble getting this card to pop up here on Magic Online, although I do know I have one. There it is, Seasons Past. So we can actually use this one. This one's a card that I really like for a deck like this. It's 6 mana, which I think is very manageable and can do a lot. And I think that's why I'm leaning towards this one compared to the other one, which is even better, but it is more expensive. So Praetor's, I think it's Praetor's like that Council. I always forget where the apostrophes go for Seasons Past and for Praetor's Council. Well, I did that one wrong, so let me fix this one like that. Praetor's Council. Let's see if we can grab this one like this now. Maybe not. Maybe I got to put the apostrophe there. Yeah, one of the downsides is Magic Online is not very forgiving when it comes to misspelling card names. There we go. So Praetor's Council, I like this one. It is 8 mana, but you return everything from your graveyard to your hand. Whereas Seasons Past, you can't return anything that has the same converted mana cost. The Praetor's Council, you can. But it is 2 more mana, and I think a difference between 6 and 8 mana is a it's a much larger one than between, let's say, 2 and 4. Like 2 and 4, you're not really going to be finding yourself in many situations where you can't cast that 4-drop, but you can cast the 2-drop. Whereas the difference between 6 and 8, I think you'll find a lot of games where you can't cast that 8-drop, but you can cast the 6-drop. So this is another card. If you like this one more than Seasons Past, I mean, I think that's just as good. But I do like the Seasons Past a little bit more. So that's the one I'm going to suggest here taking out. Okay, next up, I think I want to go for the spot removal. And off the top of my head, we're playing Bant here. And so, what would be a good spot removal card? I'm not sure. Let me just double check what I've got here open. And so I've got one of my favorite tabs to use when I'm building a deck or I'm doing a deck doctor. I like to use this one that I've generated for myself, where I've got a lot of cards that I like, and I actually rate them about how much I like them, so I know I can stay consistent about how much I like a card versus another. So let's go to the targeted answers, and let's take a look at what we've got here available as well. In terms of Bant, I'm sure there's going to be a couple of cards that are going to all work, but I want to just get one card in here. So if we go to the very top, and right now we're not here at the top yet, we're starting off the top. We've got black and blue. Fierce Guardianship. We've got a 4-drop commander that kind of counts as a cheap commander. I've typically used it for just 4 mana for 4 mana commanders or less. So I think that's the one I would go with. Now, if this is outside your budget, obviously there's a couple of other cards here as well. Next up for the color combination, I think would be the Path to Exile, Source to Plowshares option. They're both rated the same, so it's just depending on which one you think is better for the deck. Or if you want to make room for both, that's also another option. After that, we've got the Stubborn Denial, which I don't think it counts here. We'd have to have a lot of big creatures or a big commander. I don't think Stubborn Denial is going to be playable here. Next up is Nature's Claim. So depending on if you want to be able to deal with creatures, you can go for Path to Exile or Source of Plowshares. If you want to deal with artifacts, enchantments, you've got Nature's Claim and also Sundering Vitae, but I like Nature's Claim more personally, even though it is rated the same amount. If you want to deal with non-creature spells, we've got the Fierce Guardianship, that's an option. And then lastly, Mana Drain here can just deal with everything as a counterspell. Beast Within can deal with everything that's a permanent. So a couple of different options. I'm going to go for the Fierce Guardianship personally because I think that is a really good one to have. Having something for free allows you to continue to, commit to the board, and then also have, maybe protection for your creatures, or you want to be able to counter a big combo turn. You can use that with Fierce Guardianship, so I like that one for this deck here. So let's go ahead and add in Fierce Guardianship as the next one. Obviously, if that's out of your... gotta spell things right here. If that's out of your budget, whether you're watching this video or whether you're Unspokenblood, I mean, there's a couple of other options there that I kind of presented depending on what you actually want to include. But I think that if you have all those options available to you, the best one is the Fierce Guardianship. Okay, next up, we're going to add in, so we've got one more spot removal. We've got one more recursion. I want to add in one more board wipe. And so I would love to add in the boom pile. That is, as Unspoken, and many of you already know, boom pile is the one card that I think is like super underrated. It's just very versatile. It's very easy to manipulate to make it best for you compared to all of your other opponents. And in a lot of situations, it will be the only out to a problematic board state. And because it's 4 mana, it's an artifact, and so you can play it in any deck. It deals with everything if you win the board, the coin flip, which is not guaranteed to win, but hey, a 50-50% chance is better than a 0% chance with what you would have with other decks or other cards in a lot of situations. So I like Boom Pile for that reason. I think I'm going to be suggesting you to add that one in, but let me just double check my board wipes and see if I can find something that will actually fit a lot more with the theme of auras. So if I can get an enchantment, for example, that will blow up the board, that will allow us to actually recur it from the graveyard with the ultimate off of Estrid. Not something that I want to, rely on, but if that's a possibility, hey, let's go for that. So let's take a look here. A lot of these are just going to be sorceries. Now there's a creature here, but that's not going to be important for us. We're looking for sorceries, or for enchantments rather. All of these so far appear, so there's a planeswalker, but the rest of these are either instants or sorceries. Another creatures here. We've got a legendary card here, creature. Yeah, I'm not finding a bunch of enchantments that do this, which might mean that we're just going to go for the boom pile instead. Oblivion Stone, that's an artifact as well. Nevinroll is a creature. Planar Cleansing is a sorcery. Endemic Plague. Now, this one's an enchantment. You need to be playing a lot of changelings in a deck to be able to use that one. It's not going to really work that well here. Perilous Faults for all permanents, but it's an artifact. Yeah, I don't really see anything here that's an enchantment. Hopefully I didn't miss anything here, but I really don't feel like there's anything in here that's... Oh, actually, Pernicious Thief, but that's not in our color combination. Yeah, I don't really see anything in here that's going to be enchantment-based that will allow us to board wipe, unfortunately. Yeah, so we're probably just going to go for... Plague Bolt, that's an artifact. We're probably just going to go for the boom pile. Yeah, we're just going to go for the boom pile here. Make it simple. Actually, no, Cyclonic Rift. I do like that one more than boom pile. And you've already got a couple of other ones in here. Yeah, I'm going to go for the Cyclonic Rift. If that is outside of your color combination, or outside of your budget, I think boom pile is still a pretty cheap card, surprisingly. People just don't really give it the rating, I think, that it deserves. But Cyclonic Rift is a good card, and I think it will actually work pretty well in a deck like this. So we'll add that one in. And then the last one I'd like to add in is a land, and then we're going to double check with the unblockability. Maybe we can find something that makes it even better. So let's add in the Cyclonic Rift here, and then we're going to go for a land. So I'm not sure what lands Unspokenblood currently has in the deck, so I'm going to just double check here really quickly. We do see a couple of shock lands. We've got the Mosswort Bridge. Normally I would look into this and find, like, are we playing too many utility lands, too many color fixing lands? Right now, Unspokenblood has 9 basics, which is pretty close to where I'd like to be. I probably want to, like, cut a few, but I'm going to leave it how it is. Because I think, or actually maybe I do actually play 9 basics in my decks. I think I actually do. Never mind. I think I play 9 basics in my tricolor decks. Let me just double check on that really quickly. So my mana base tab here will keep track of all the lands I'm playing as well. So it's also one nice way to keep track of what you've got in your decks as well. You can kind of compare them with a spreadsheet. Although, trying to do recording and trying to do Magic Online all at the same time, and obviously things are going a little bit slower here. But yeah, in my 3-color decks I've got 8. Instead of 9, which is not that bad. It's not that big of a difference. I'm not gonna suggest drop a basic, add something else in. This is fine. In terms of utility lands, we've got one here, the Forge of Heroes. So that's the first one that can put an additional loyalty counter onto Estrid. So that combined with the doubling season will actually allow you to ultimate Estrid immediately. So that's kind of nice. Let's see what else we've got here. In terms of utility lands, we've got the Mosswort Bridge, so that one's going to be a good utility land for sure. We've got Reliquary Tower, which does make sense in this deck. If you're playing a lot of Enchantresses, I can definitely see where you'd want to run that one. Besides that, we're not really seeing any other utility lands. Everything else here is just color fixing. So I'm going to suggest adding in one of my favorite utility lands, because we're not playing a lot of stuff with the graveyard. We do have a couple of things that allow us, well, hold on a second. I was about to suggest Scavenger Grounds, but we do have a lot of recursion in this deck, and auras are pretty fragile because they're hit by creature removal, because you can remove the creature, but they're also hit by enchantment removal, so they're just slightly more fragile than creatures, which are already pretty fragile as well. They're not as fragile as planeswalkers, but they're definitely pretty close to the top when it comes to fragility. So Scavenger Grounds was what I was going to suggest, but I think it's not going to come into play in a lot of situations. I think what we'd like to have instead is a way to deal with problematic lands. So you'll find yourself in many games where somebody has a land out there, maybe a Cabal Coffer's Urborg combo, maybe they've got a Gaia's Cradle, maybe a Nykthos, they're producing a lot of mana with any of those 3 cards. Maybe they've got a Reliquary Tower and they've got 27 cards in their hand. You want to try to get them down to 7 because it'll make it easier for you to defeat them. Maybe that's what you want to get rid of. Maybe it's something that's kind of shutting you down. I know in one of my recent videos I was playing Rick's Maddie Dungeon Palace as a way for having to have a land that would continue to discard cards from my opponent's hands, and they quickly found themselves without any cards in hand because of that land. So you might find yourself in a situation where you want to get rid of something like that. Bunch of utility lands that you could want to get rid of. Academy Ruins if someone's recurring an artifact to continue to blow up board over and over. Volrath Stronghold. You got a lot of stuff like that. So there's a lot of lands you might want to get rid of in a game from utility aspect, but we're playing 3 colors. So I used to suggest Strip Mine, even for 3-color decks, 5-color decks, doesn't matter, Strip Mine's the best. But I realized that when you're playing a 3-color deck, you want to be able to also have your colors, and so while Field of Ruin is not an amazing card compared to Strip Mine, I think it does allow you to have a utility land that can deal with problematic lands without cutting from your part of your deck that allows you to have the right colors that you need. Now obviously Unspokenblood has plenty of color fixing lands in here, so I don't think he needs more color fixing. If that were the case, I would suggest Field of Ruin, but I guess because they're playing so much, because he's playing so much color fixing, I think he's actually got room for Strip Mine. There's also other utility lands that this deck could utilize. The one that I'm thinking of most is Heliod's Intervention, which is recursion as well. Maybe that's more important than the Strip Mine. I don't know. You got a lot of options here, Unspokenblood. I would say out of the 4 options here, Scavenger Grounds, Strip Mine, Field of Ruin, and Hall of Heliod's Generosity, I do actually like the Hall the most because it's going to work with what we're trying to do, and at the same time, you're not including that land destruction right now, but I still do recommend it at some point in the future. Maybe dropping a few of those tapped lands that produce 2 colors, dropping some of those, add in a couple of those other utility lands should be pretty good. I don't think it'll be too hard of a stretch for a deck like this. So that's the last of those 4 cards I'm going to add in. So now we can just go ahead and double check on the unblockability. So I'm going to be using Scryfall Regular Expressions for this one. Some of you may have seen me do this before. I do think this is an important skill that you'll want to use if you want to take full advantage of how Scryfall works. So I'm going to kind of explain how it works a little bit. I try to do that in every of my Deck Doctor videos, although I do have a video specifically dedicated to using Scryfall and how to do that best. So I'll probably put a card to that here. But let's just take a look here for unblockability. I do like the 3 drops that generate full unblockability, no questions asked. So this one just makes it impossible to block unless you've got Defender. Most people are not playing Defender creatures in Commander. You'll find that sometimes you'll go up against Wall Tribal, but most of the time it's going to be counting as just unblockability. What's even better is this Unquestioned Authority. Protection from creatures, definitely not going to be blocked anymore, but also gets you to draw a card, which is pretty cool. After that, we've got the Pentarch Ward. I'm not a huge fan of this one. Yes, it does draw you a card, but it only gives you protection from 1 color. So if you're playing against a 5-color deck, for example, or a 4-color deck, or a 3-color deck, and they just happen to have 3 monocolor deck creatures, each of a different color, Pentarch Ward is not going to do that much here. I do like the Holy Mantle. This one definitely works, but it's 4 mana. I'm going to try to find some more 3-drop options for giving one specific creature unblockability. After that, I'm going to look for a couple of things that cost 4 mana or less that allow you to give unblockability to all your creatures. Kind of like this Archetype of Imagination. Obviously, you don't want to have the amount of mana that you're paying for giving one creature unblockability or for giving all your creatures unblockability to be the same. But I do actually want to kind of take a look at what those upper limits are going to be. I'm going to start off with a very tentative 3 and 4 respectively, but I'll be increasing that as I need to going forward. So that should be pretty good for us right now. The Whitewater Naiads, it's kind of like halfway between. So what I'm going to be doing is, for this specific card, if 5 mana is the threshold for the average of the two, then it's going to be good enough. If it's lower than that, then I will suggest to drop the Whitewater Naiads. I'm going to kind of use the 2 thresholds average to compare to Whitewater Dryads here. All right, so next up, yeah, let's just go ahead and start taking a look. We've got the Spectral Ward, which does give unblockability. It also can give some hexproof, which is kind of nice. So we'll kind of adjust for that. If something does give hexproof as well, or gives it protection from targeted removal, I'm gonna consider that as well to kind of increase that CMC allowance. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at Scryfall. So we're gonna start off by making sure that we're only looking for cards that are legal in the format of Commander and legal in our color identity. So that's the first thing I always start off with. F here stands for format. Obviously EDH is Commander. ID here stands for color ID. Now important, you got to put the colon there. If you put equals, then you're saying I want the color identity of the search result to be exactly Bant, whereas the colon says I want it to fit within Bant. So you'll get colorless cards when you do it this way, which is important. You actually do want to have colorless cards here. Next up, I'd like to have let's start off by looking for things that will give one creature unblockability. So we're going to look for things that are specifically auras. So we're going to look specifically for auras, and then here's where it gets a little tough. We're going to look for O. So obviously, I'm going to go back here a second. T stands for type. So we're looking for the type of card. This includes subtypes and super types. Everything that's considered a type will be, it's a type of type. So aura will definitely count there. O stands for oracle text. So we're looking actually at the text on the rules part of the card. And I'm going to put 2 slashes here. This is going to suggest that I'm asking specifically for a regular expression. And inside this, I'm going to be putting my regular expression. So the first thing I want to look for is for auras that give flying. That's going to be an important one. If we can give flying, that counts. Fear also kind of counts. Intimidate works as well. Now, these are going to be kind of like softer versions of unblockability. But if we can get it at 3 CMC or less, I'll be happy about that. So flying, fear, intimidate, can't be blocked is going to be a good one. Another one that we can add in here is Shadow. That's also pretty good. We've got Horsemanship. What else do we have? We've got, land walks of different types. Protection, we've got that one as well. I'm going to see if I can find some other things that give protection from multiple colors, or again, more things that give protection from all creatures. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of. So let me see here. Flying, fear, intimidate. I guess trample also kind of works. If we've got a pretty big creature, trample will also give, we'll be able to give trample to that creature. That should be kind of work, but that's going to be even softer of an evasion. So I'm going to kind of take a look at the search results and see. Maybe we'll just include only 1 source of trample, or maybe 0. We'll see. I don't want to include like 2 or more of those, because that's going to be a pretty big non-bow for sure. All right, so walking, protection, trample. I think that's it. I can't think of anything else that would be under this category of unblockability. We could add Skulk there, but we're not going to be attacking with small creatures. We're trying to attack with big creatures. Yeah, I think that's it. We're just going to go ahead and press search. So we're going to be looking at this, and then once this is all searched, we're going to actually change the order in which we will be using this. So right now it's sorted by EDH rec rank. So we're looking at the cards based on how much other people play them. But I actually want to look first by CMC, because that's going to be an important consideration that we'll be using to figure out if we actually want to include something or not. So flying, it looks like there's a couple of things that can give flying for 1 mana. So flying, I think it might be just too soft. If there's just all these cards, especially older cards, if there's a lot of things in here that can give flying for such a small cost, I'm not going to be that excited about that. Ablution's Desire is an interesting one because it does give Shroud, which is kind of good sometimes, but it's also kind of bad because sometimes you want to put more auras onto the same creature. So Ablution's Desire, I mean, you might be able to include that one if you want, but I feel like that's not going to be that great. On the other hand, Aqueous Form cannot be blocked by anything, so I like this one here. The Aqueous Form, I do like that one for sure. So let's open that into a new tab. Arcane Flight also gives a buff, which might be the best flying 1-drop if you want to include that one. But again, it's not super necessary. Artifact Creatures is not going to be that many blockers. You have to pay 3 mana to block with the creature. Can't be blocked by black. Can't be blocked by black. Blue. Can't be blocked except by walls. So that's going to be another source of that. You can't be blocked except by things that have Defender. However, it does give the enchanted creature phasing. So that's a pretty big downside that I'm not interested in adding to this deck. This one will it will tap down a creature for 3 turns, and then it'll emerge from the cocoon with flying and I think a +1/+1 counter on it. Not that great, I think, in a deck like this. More flying here. This one's enchanting an island. So this one allows you to change the color that you're giving protection from. I don't know how good that is. Dryad's Favor only gives, the walk for forests specifically. If it were multiple things, I might be more interested in that. Like if it was, for example, Forest Walk and Plains Walk. Maybe I would be more interested in that. I think just having one on there, it puts you in a very interesting position where it's like half the decks, it's gonna be dead against them. So I'm gonna say no to that one. But if we find something that has multiple walks or walks of something else other than basic land types, I'll be more interested in that. This one gives +1/+0 and flying. It also allows you to play from the graveyard, which is actually pretty good. If you find yourself in a position where you just need that a little bit of extra unblockability, the Griff's Boon is going to be the best thing that you can use for that. So I actually kind of like this one here. We can use that one and be pretty good. Next up here, we've got power 3 or greater. I mean, small creatures are going to be what people are going to be chump blocking with anyways. Mask of Law and Grace. I actually really like this one. Protection from black and red protects you from ways that people are going to want to target your creature that you're not going to be doing specifically. But it also protects you from red board wipes. And it gives you protection from 2 types of colors. So I really like the Mask of Law and Grace. I feel like it's not going to be a dead card very often at all. Rancor. This one might be the best source of trample, so let's put that into a new category, or into a new tab, because I do feel like giving the trample is nice, giving the +2/+0 is also pretty nice, but when it goes into the graveyard from the battlefield, you also get to put it back into your hand, so you don't actually ever lose access to that. Kind of like a Griff's Boon, but just even better, because you can always play it out there, and you just don't have to do it as for example, this ability, it's 4 mana compared to the 1 mana here. This is always going to be 1 mana, so that's kind of nice. This is only red, only red. Now this is green and blue. The reason I'm not interested in this one is because we're playing green and blue, and so we won't be able to actually target the creature with our green and blue auras, which might actually be pretty bad for us. Next up here, land walk abilities. It can block those creatures. Not that interested in that one here. White and white. This is enchanting a land. If it's power 2 or less, yeah, we're trying to put it on big creatures. All right, next up we've got our 2-drop cards. So this is going to be, I'm going to say from this point on, that flying and trample not going to be good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and take those out here. I'm going to take out the flying, and I'm going to take out the trample. And one of the reasons that I want to do that is because I don't want to find myself in a situation where I've got the trample, but man, if I only had something else, I'd be good. And I just draw into another trample card. Same thing with flying. If I have flying, but man, I really need something else, and I just draw into another flying card. I don't want to find myself in a situation like that. So I'm going to go ahead and say we've got 1 flying, we've got 1 trample. We can add 1 of each, maybe if we want to, for having all of our creatures but I feel like trample is not going to be as good to give it to all your creatures. Really, it just matters to give it to your biggest creature, and after that, it's kind of diminishing returns. Whereas flying, it really does affect just a whole board state. So I'll probably drop out trample when we get to that one. And I don't think I actually dropped it. Oh, I did. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look here at the 2-drops. So we've got unblockability. That one is fantastic. This gives it reach and ability to block shadow. Not that great. Hexproof, it's okay, but not amazing. Actually, I do typically like Hexproof a lot when you're trying to, suit up one creature. But with this deck, you might actually just want to put auras on a bunch of different creatures, so it might not be so bad to give Hexproof, especially that we've already got Privileged Position. We've got the other cards, Sterling Grove combined with the Enchanted Evening. We can give all of our creatures Hexproof as well. So I kind of like that already for both of those. So this is protection from a chosen color. This one is flying on a 2-drop, but again, I'm not interested in that one. It also gives it Hexproof. So that is kind of nice. Is that better than the Griff's Boon, though? Because that one allows us to get it from the graveyard. I actually kind of do like it, because the Hexproof is important. Yeah, you know what? Let's go for the Canopy cover over the Griff's Boon. Again, I don't want to have 2 of those cards. And I feel like the recursion ability from Griff Boon is just not as good as the Hexproof text on the Canopy cover. So that's kind of nice. It does not give it reach, though, so it cannot block creatures that are flying, but it can attack as though it had flying. Let me see here. This is also just 1 chosen color. This one's just straight up unblockable for 2 mana. Island Walk, can't be blocked except by walls. That one's also kind of like an unblockability here. Protection from black and red again. Do we want to just take a look at that? So let me think about this one. We've got the Crown of Awe. If we get that as another option for the Mask of Law and Grace. I kind of like that one. Although it does have the same problem as flying and trample. Yeah, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to just include just that one Mask of Law and Grace. because I just don't want to ever find myself in a situation where I'm drawing into that second copy. Which I guess is not that bad, right? If you're drawing into a second copy, I guess that's probably okay. Hold on a second. Do we go for 2 flying, 2 trample? I don't think we do. I think we're good at just 1 of each, because there's so many different ways we can do it. We don't need to double dip into any of these things, because there's just so much out there. All right, so we've got the invisibility here as can't be blocked except by walls, which I think it's way less likely that you're going to go up against somebody who's playing walls than it is that you're going to go up against somebody who happens to have creatures that are not black or red, or happens to have flying creatures, or happens to have a big creature. Like, those are going to be happening a lot more commonly than walls. So that's why I'm not putting it into the same category of just one of effects. We don't want to have multiple things. Pledge of Loyalty gives protection from 3 colors, but it's also the 3 colors we actually don't want to have protection from as much. Next up, we've got here, enchanted creature can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. Oh, so this is not okay. This is not even source of unblockability. Spirit Mantle, I think we've already gotten that in the deck, right? No, we don't actually. Spirit Mantle is great though. Gives protection from creatures. Just straight up unblockability is really great. And so we'll just go ahead and do that one here. This prevents all the damage, even though it does give shadow. So I'm not interested in that one. Gives flying. Protection from black. Gives flying. This one is protection from a color of your choice. Yeah, that's not that great here. Can't be blocked by spirits. Well, that's pretty bad, actually. We've already got the Imprison the Moon, and then that's up to the 3-drop cards. So currently we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards with CMC 2 or less that can give unblockability. That's literally this whole category. So we could literally drop this whole category of cards and add in the 8 cards that we found, and every single one of these cards would get less expensive. Nothing would stay the same, because we actually haven't even dipped into the 3 CMC cards. And you know what? I kind of like that. It allows us to be a little bit better with our mana. We will have a lot of mana though, so maybe the cheapness of the effect is not going to be as important as the other benefits of the effect. So maybe we actually want to go, now that I think about it, maybe we're actually more interested in bigger sources of unlockability if it also gives us a significant buff to the creature, or if it gives it hexproof, or if it gives it, I mean, I'm not even sure what else we'd want to give it, right? Because, I mean, there's a couple of these cards that are already, like, definitely feel like they're not that great. Why pay 4 mana to give Flying, Vigilance, and Lifelink when you can pay 1 mana and give Flying and +1/+1, right? You know, like, that's an option for us. We can literally do that. We can cut off the Vigilance and the Lifelink and make this cheaper by 75%. So 75% of it just gone, cut out there. I still feel pretty good about like the idea of dropping these 8 cards to add in the 8 cards that we already talked about. I really do feel like that's a good idea here. I might regret this, but I think we're going to start off with that. Let's start off with this first, and then let's see what we can do. Now, a couple of these cards are benefits in other ways. So, for example, Unquestioned Authority can draw you a card, so it replaces itself. That's pretty nice. Same thing with the Pentarch Ward. I really don't like this one at all. The Unquestioned Authority, that one I do have a question about. But I feel like that one we actually might be more interested in dropping. Holy Mantle, not that great of an additional benefit. Spectra Ward, this prevents us from attaching additional auras to that creature, which is actually a bit of a downside here. It does, I mean, it doesn't remove the auras we already have, but it makes it so that we can't target that creature with any more auras. Protection from all colors is really good though, because it gives it hexproof and pretty much straight up unblockability, and the +2/+2 is nice. Yeah, you know what? I do like the Spectral Ward, so I'm going to say yes to this one, and I do like the Unquestioned Authority, because those allow you to do some extra cool stuff. So we'll keep those 2 in. Now I got to figure out which 2 I don't want to add in from the ones that I mentioned earlier. Let me just do this really quickly. I'm going to move this category over, and then move this into that category. Okay, so we've got a new spot for this category here. So we've got to figure out which 2 cards we actually want to drop from the 8 that we found. So Aqueous Form, I mean, this is just so good. The Scry is an additional benefit, but just straight up unblockability for 1 mana. You know, I've got an idea here. Let's do this. We're going to go ahead and say, let's just go ahead. I'm going to actually, let me take a step back here. I actually want to start off by looking for things that have either hexproof or they draw a card. Is that really all yeah, that's really pretty much it that we're looking for in terms of additional buffs. Can't be the target, so we're going to look for that one. I'm surprised it doesn't give just straight up hexproof. Because you would think it... Oh, I'm sorry. Spells or ability? No, that's both. Spells or abilities. What else could it be? Your opponent's control. That's hexproof, right? I'm pretty sure that's what hexproof means. I don't know. If there's something there that's different than hexproof, that's why it's not coming up there. So we've got these things here. I want to look for things that will say either draw or, and that's what this symbol here means. This little pipe, which is right above your enter. If you press shift, and that it's this little thing. If you press shift on that character, you'll get that pipe. I think is what it's called. So that means or. So you're looking for this or that or this. So we're looking for either something that says draw, hexproof, protection, because that also counts. I gotta spell it right though. Protection or can't be the target. So that's also going to count here. Let's see what we can find in terms of this. We actually do want to say, if it does say protection, then we want to make sure that we're getting protection from multiple colors. And I would be okay with like black or red combined with blue, white, or green. I just don't want to have two of those three colors. I want to have at most one of them. And then I would love to have black and red, but probably only one of those effects. I don't want to have like multiples of those effects. If I could get like black and red and then black and white, I think I'd be okay with that because we can actually get protection from white creatures if we have that one that we draw into. But yeah, let's just do that this way. So we're going to start off by looking at the protection cards. This is only one color, so one, or this is just artifacts. 1, 1, 1, 1. Here's the 2, so we've got that Mask of Long Grace open already. So we'll just move that over here. That's just 1, that's 1. This is 2 of the ones we don't want. 1, this is only hexproof. This is only one color. We've got the canopy cover. We're going to move that one over as well. So I like that one a lot also. This is only one color. This is the 2 colors. We already have those 2 colors. This is the 3 colors we don't want to have protection from. Protection from creatures. That's not going to be that important for us because it's not going to protect our it's not going to give a type of hexproof like the type of protection from colors will. So I'm going to say no to that one for right now. We might actually come back and take a look at cards that give a pretty big buff. I don't think +1/+1 is going to cut it for a big buff, quote unquote, but I think we'll definitely come back to taking a look at cards that do have some type of buff. So let's take a look here. We're getting close to the end here. So this is just flying. It does give you allow you to draw a card. Yeah, you know what? I kind of like that one as the source of flying here over the... Which one did I choose before? Was it this one? Ether Tunnel? No, that's not it. That's not it either. What did we have for flying? I think I forgot what we had for flying. Oh, we said no to flying for right now. All right, so that's why. We didn't actually add anything for flying. This one's one color. This one's one color, but it does give you the draw card, but still not good enough, I think. We're actually dropping it from the deck. Protection from enchantments. That's actually really bad. Draw card here. We do have that one that we're going to keep in the deck, and then we've got those last 2. So Spectral Ward, Unquestioned Authority, those are already going to stay in the deck. We can definitely add in the Canopy cover, Mask of Long Grace, and the Stratus Walker. And then I think now what we're going to look for is things that give a pretty big buff. So we're going to look for things that say plus. And then we were going to put here brackets. So brackets is kind of like this. It's like parentheses where you can put stuff in there and then choose, you know, this or this or this. But one of the reasons I like it is I can actually do things that are consecutive. So I can say 3 to 9, so anything that's between 3 and 9 as well, or X. So the comma here is what's going to count as X there. And then I want to make sure that we're looking at that as part of the power. What the toughness it gives, we're not so much interested in that, but we actually are looking for things. Oh, it says invalid regular expression. Where did I go? Oh, I'm sorry. That plus also means something in regular expression. So we gotta put that out there as well. So we can give +3/+3 in trample. But I'm not interested in that one as much. And you know, I'm just realizing now, we actually did not have flying or trample in the previous category. So let's do this again. Let's do flying and trample. Yeah, so we've got some +4 things. Those are pretty nice. We've got some +8 things, which I definitely like here as well. So let's think about this. We've got a couple of options here. We don't want to include more than 1 flying and more than 1 trample. So currently we've got the Stratus Walk. Is that better to draw a card off of it entering, or to, for example, have Angelic Destiny, which it will give a +4/+4 in flying, but it'll also, when the enchanted creature dies, we get to return Angelic Destiny to its owner's hand. I kind of like this one more, to be honest. It's a little bit stickier. We can kind of keep using it if it does go away. I like it more than the Drake Umbra as well, although it does give the totem armor and gives +3/+3. It just gives 4 for 4, and it gives flying, and it just doesn't get destroyed very easily. So I like this one more than the Stratus Walk. Although I guess it wouldn't be too bad for us to have 2 effects. Let's just do this tentatively for right now. Let's just have 2 effects like this and see if there's something else we actually want to do. The Rancor also I actually want to include for Trample because it gets to get back to the hand. So that one I definitely like. Aqueous Form, we'll keep these open because I might actually come to those in a second. But I want to just keep looking here. We actually only have to add in 1 more card, and it's probably going to be something off this list. So let's take a look here. For 3, we can get 3. For 4, we can get 3, but it's only for humans to give Trample, so this one's strictly better. For 4, we can give 3 in Trample, but we can also give Regenerate for 1 green mana, so those are kind of interesting. For 6 mana, we can give +5/+5 in Trample, but it also has Flash, so we can kind of do some interesting things with that. Although I think the Flash is not as good as just giving +7/+7 in Trample for 6 mana. And we can, pay 1 more mana to give it 1 more power and toughness, but I don't think that's worth it. I think the Prodigious Growth is my favorite Trample enabler here. We'll have the Rancor as well, but I like this one a lot as well. So the ones that I'm thinking about adding in, Vow of Wildness, Prodigious Growth, Gaia's Cradle, and Mythic Proportions. Which one do I like most and why? I don't think I care too much about the Regenerate ability. I feel like that's hard to really take advantage of nowadays because so many people are playing Damnation and Wrath of God, where the Regenerate is just too much to rely on. Trample, so the Vow of Wildness does have an additional side where if someone has a really big creature and you can still target it, you can still put the Vow of Wildness on that creature, and so it's not going to be able to attack you until they get rid of that aura. So that's one additional benefit off of it. It is pretty cheap, but I like having just a huge buff. And you know what? I think the more I think about it, the more I like the Mythic Proportions. That Trample really wants to have that pretty big buff, and so I like that one here. We also have, there's another one here. Why are we not picking up on the other one here? We actually have one that gives +10/+10. So let me just do this really quick. Is there a lot of things that give plus multiple stuff? Because I think Mythic Proportions, 7 mana for 8 in Trample is not going to be as good as 8 mana for 10/10 in Trample and Annihilator too. So I kind of like the Eldrazi Conscription. It is expensive, but I think it's definitely really worth it. So let's go for those. We've got 6 cards here. We're going to go and add these cards in. So Eldrazi Conscription and Canopy Cover will be the first ones we will add in. All right. Canopy Cover will be the first one, and then the Eldrazi Conscription as well. And obviously, if you feel like, Unspoken Blood, if you feel like 8 mana is just too much, it is kind of I'm really trying this in sort of a way of experimenting, right? I'm trying to experiment in this and say, is this actually going to be a good card for this deck? I would say try it out. See if the 8 mana is actually worth it in this deck, because, the best thing you could do is, draw it off of your top, and you've got the Omniscience in play, you play it for free, and it's just huge. It just impacts the board way more. That's one benefit here. But at the same time, sometimes you'll find yourself like, man, I really wish I had that, maybe a +7/+7. I have 6 mana, I don't have the 8 mana. Maybe that's the way to go for it. So, it just depends on what you want to go for. I just think it's amazing. It's also got the Annihilator 2, which also can help you get out of problematic situations, so I think it's worth that 8 mana. Eldrazi Conscription. And so while that's loading up, we're looking at the next 2 here. Mask of Long Grace and Stratus Walk will be the next 2 I will suggest. Let's go ahead and get that one loaded. There we go. We'll add that one into the deck as well. It also combos off really well with our tutor that we've got in this deck. So classic combo is using Sovereigns of Lost Alara. We attack with 1 creature, get an aura for free. We get the Eldrazi Conscription. So that's a pretty big combo that I think a lot of people keep in mind. So I think that's why I'm more interested in going for an expensive card here compared to where I went for Seasons Past over Praetor's Council earlier. Stratus Walk, and the other card was Mask of Law and Grace. The ones after that will be Angelic Destiny and Rancor. So those are 2 cards I think I can remember here. Stratus Walk allows you to draw a card when it enters, and you get flying, which is kind of nice. And then lastly, what we have before we go to the next ones, Mask of Law and Grace. I really do think that this kind of card is going to be just so good for a deck like this. You get protection from black and red, protects you from spot removal that are black and red. You protects you from creatures that are black and red, and it protects you from red board wipes, because a lot of those red board wipes are going to deal damage. If somebody's playing, for example, a Blasphemous Act, or they're playing an Earthquake, or something along those lines, Mask of Law and Grace will protect you from those things. Chain Reaction, another one that will work as well. So Mask of Law and Grace, we want to add in the Rancor, and then the last one's going to be the Angelic Destiny, which I actually, now that I look at it, I do like that one a lot more than the white card that I was talking about earlier, which is I think something with a Gryph, Hippogriff something. I I can't remember, Feldegriff. I don't know. There's something. It was that white 1-drop that gives +1/+0 and flying for 1 mana, but you can pay 4 mana to return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. I think, like the Angelic Destiny, this one's just going to be a lot better because you're paying 4 mana every time, but now you're giving 3 more power instead of what you had before. So those are the 10 cards I'm going to suggest you add in. These are the 10 cards I'm going to suggest you drop to add those 10 cards in. And that is it for this deck tech. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Gavony Township. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know I always enjoy doing a deck doctor. Thank you especially to my patrons, especially Unspokenblood, for being a patron of mine, supporting me at patreon.com/magicalhacker. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next time. Stay awesome, everybody.